You know, I was about 40 minutes into the latest episode of From thinking this is a pretty slow episode. Then something happens that completely changes where this show can go. Are we time traveling? Are we going to have a demon baby? Will I need another drink with Henry to calm myself down? There is so much to talk about, and please do leave your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Now let's get into it. The episode picks up shortly after the death of Tilly. Boyd takes Fatima to a shed out in the woods, knowing that if it were discovered she killed the old lady, it's very likely she would be sentenced to the box, a particularly cruel form of the death penalty in which the convict is left to be mauled by the monsters. Boyd is taking a tremendous risk harboring his daughter-in-law, later telling Donna that people will come to understand that it wasn't Fatima's fault that she killed Tilly, rather some greater power. This is the same argument that was used to justify the evil shit Sarah did in season 1, such as leaving the door open to the clinic so Kenny's father would die. But as Donna will later tell us, the people have lost faith in Boyd, and no doubt when they find out he's harboring a murderer, there will be serious consequences. Perhaps they're laying the groundwork to have Acosta take over his job. I also read somewhere that there's a reason why they haven't divulged Acosta's first name, so keep that in the back of your mind as we go forward. Fatima describes the killing of Tilly as a fit of rage, one in which something inside her took control and she couldn't stop. She'll later tell Ellis she's concerned that she might do it again, and what would happen if she tried to kill him. This is echoed by Boyd as he's concerned for his son's safety. After mounting pressure from Donna and some of the other townsfolk to go after Sarah, Boyd discloses that she isn't the killer. Fatima is, and Donna basically says if he doesn't tell the people, she will. Rather than follow Donna's demands, Boyd helps Ellis escape into the woods where they'll live on the run, or at least until Boyd can prove Fatima isn't a threat. Something tells me the town isn't going to approve. Meanwhile, Elgin receives two mysterious Polaroids, one of a blood bag and the other of the shed where Fatima hides. It's implied that the kimono woman uses these Polaroids to guide Elgin on his journey to save not only her, but the town. This is why Elgin is willing to go as far as kidnapping if it's for the greater good. We'll see Elgin pick up this primary Y-type blood set used to transfer blood from a person into a container. This is interesting for a few reasons, since in season 2, Ellis said that he isn't good around blood.
Hey, you alright?
Yeah, I'm not really good with blood.
It's even more interesting because Ellis has type O negative blood, making him a universal donor, so Ellis seems to be collecting his blood to give to Fatima. However, knowing how crazy this show is, I can't rule out the blood could be going to the kimono woman or even that corpse sitting in the root cellar. Drinking or tasting blood has been a recurring image this season. First, we have Fatima who tasted Nikki's blood. Whatever is inside her craves it. Then there's the ghost Jade saw drinking blood out of a skull. Additionally, Boyd's tainted worm blood was seemingly passed over to Smiley in season 2, so blood definitely plays a big role in whatever's going to happen next. But what are the kimono woman's motives? She tells Elgin she needs his help, but for what, we don't know. Does she want to become human again? Is she sucking the life of Fatima's baby to regain her form, or is she transferring her soul into the baby? Elgin confirms to Fatima that there is a baby inside her, just that it's not hers. Remember that prior to coming to town, Fatima was told she could not have children, so something about this place made it possible for her to conceive, perhaps some higher power. In my last breakdown, I talked about how Tilly might have been guided by this power in order to get Fatima to this exact point. It all seems like a well-orchestrated plan by a higher being. Jim even mentions in this episode that there is something out there that knows everything about them.
Something here knows things about us. And it knows which buttons to push.
How is that possible without it being at least some semi-omniscient being? I've said in past videos I think there is a struggle between a good and evil entity at play here, using our characters as metaphorical chess pieces. Now it's just a matter of separating the good characters from the bad, and the clues so far point at the kimono woman being evil. She tried to drown Elgin, pops up at the most mysterious times, like when Nikki dies, showed Elgin a creepy hidden room with a dead body in it, and was likely the one to order Elgin to kidnap Fatima. This question of who is good and evil permeates Victor's storyline. Last episode we saw him take Jasper to Sarah's, hoping that being in the basement might make Jasper talk. And this is the most unhinged I think I've ever seen Victor as his frustration takes over. In time, Sarah and Tabitha are able to find out that Victor's memory of Jasper and Christopher happened in the church basement, so they make their way over there. By being in that space, Victor remembers that it wasn't Jasper who was talking, but the boy in white. And there are two things I really want to discuss here. First is this line that the boy in white told Christopher.
He said the answers to the end are at the beginning.
And this beginning started with the children. We'll get to them in a second. I also found it quite odd that Tilly used the same language of beginning, middle, and end last episode, which I don't think is a coincidence. This leads to the second important part of Victor's memory, the story of the children. When we hear this story without context, it's a bit of a mess. Victor states that a group of children were killed by loved ones. Then they were told a story about hope that allowed them to pour this hope into the roots of a tree to make a symbol. Easy, right? Well, let's try to break it down. The children here are likely the Ankui kids, since Victor refers to them laying on slabs of stone like Jade saw them on in Season 2. The others might be their parents, since they're referred to as the ones who were loved and trusted by these kids. But who is this mystery person who came and told them this story of hope? My guess is one of the entities. Throughout Season 2 and 3, the word hope has been tossed around as something the town feeds off, because the town needs hope to breed pain.
It wants you to fight. It wants you to have hope that you could actually win.
Why?
Because hope is what makes you willing to suffer.
In this context, hope is not a good thing. It really calls into question whether or not these kids are evil or controlled by something evil. The boy in white wants them saved, but others want them dead. The thing that wanted them alive gave them a story of hope, yet it's hope that seemingly fuels the evil entity of the town. If you're confused, then you might understand why Christopher was so angry and frustrated at the boy in white. He didn't know what to believe. If you listen closely and read his lips, it looks as though he says everything lies here. I'll play the untouched version first, then the cleaned up version I used in my audio program.
Everything lied.
Christopher ultimately decides not to save the children, which the boy in white said would require him going through a faraway tree. It's hinted that the faraway trees were conjured by the Ankui kids, and these roots were created from their hope. With Christopher unwilling to save the children, Victor told his mom this story. That's why she left him and Eloise the night before the massacre. No wonder Victor didn't remember this story, because he may consider himself responsible for his mother's death. If he didn't tell her that story, she may very well still be alive. But Miranda knew about having to save these kids before Victor told her this story. She was having visions of them before she even got to this town. It must have been the part about going through the faraway tree that was new information for her. She knew if Christopher wasn't going to save them, she had to. Henry said that Miranda considered herself the chosen one. The Ankui kids can also be heard in Julie's storyline when she crosses the threshold into the dungeon. At the beginning of the episode, Julie, who I think has a bit of a crush on Randall, asks him to join her to investigate those ruins, stating that she felt something here. Perhaps it's something that could help them, but Randall doesn't want to go anywhere near that place. Notice how Randall's been carving one of those weird totems, like the one Boyd found on the bus. These creepily resemble the totems outside these settlements, so I'm guessing someone back in that time period had the same compulsion as Randall. With Randall unwilling to go, Julie brings Ethan, telling him something about this place stopped the screams in her head. She had been experiencing these screams ever since she came out of the trance caused by the cicadas. Ethan refers to this place as a threshold, coincidentally the title of this episode, and as they venture through the ruins, Julie is transported to Martin's dungeon. In the real world, however, she violently convulses, prompting Ethan to run for help. Now, there is a lot going on here. Is this a vision, a hallucination? Is she actually going back through time, or is she inhabiting someone else's body? Here's what we know. I'm going to split this sequence into 4 distinct sections. The first is what Boyd saw at the end of Season 2 as Julie, Randall, and Marielle are chained to the wall. It's possible the screams Julie has been hearing in her head are that of her, Marielle, and Randall. The second section involves Martin, and this is where things start to get really wild. Martin somehow knows Julie's name.
Julie.
How do you know my name?
This is a bit odd because he didn't know Boyd's.
What's your name?
but somehow he knew about Boyd's wife, Abby.
You ever wonder if Abby was right?
It turns out that Julie was the one who threw down the rope to help Boyd at the beginning of season 2, which would imply this is some sort of time travel. While we can't be certain, time travel has been something this show has hinted at. Tabitha's dream shows her as a child in period clothing. If this wasn't a dream, and in fact it was a memory, it would mean Tabitha is from a different time. We don't know much about Martin and his link to Julie, but I can only recall one other person who knew Julie when she didn't know them back, and for that we have to go all the way to season 1 episode 2 and this guy.
Julie,
What are you doing?
don't you recognize me?
Not sure if there's any connection, but I thought I'd throw it out there. We'll hear Martin repeat a line he said in season 2, that Boyd has to hurry because, quote, he'll be back soon. We still don't know who this person is, but Martin talks about how there are things out there that are more evil than the monsters in town.
You think those things that come out of the forest at night did this? They're just the tip of the spear.
So it could be one of those things, or maybe even the boy in white. Remember, it was the boy in white who told Boyd to go through the tree that led him here in the first place. When Martin disappears, Julie leads us to the 3rd and 4th sections, which take place in the tunnels underneath town. We know they're the tunnels because in the 3rd moment, we can hear Tabitha and Victor saying the same lines when they escape the tunnels in episode 201. We have no real reference when Julie's final section takes place. This involves the flickering of fire and several of the Ankui children repeating the word Ankui over and over again. In Victor's story, he mentioned the children being murdered in the dark. Could the dark be a reference to the darkness of the tunnels? Julie is eventually awoken from this trance and brought back to the present, but this event raises a lot of questions. Can other people cross these thresholds? Was it the cicada attack that allowed her to do this? Meaning, do Randall and Marielle also possess this ability? Can she cross this threshold again, or are there other such places she can go back in time? With the boy in white stating the answers to the end are in the beginning, being able to go back would certainly help in getting those answers. Back in town, Jade finds a drunk Henry crashed at the bar. The last we saw him, he was drinking away his feelings with Donna. Did they hook up? Henry will witness an argument between Jade and Jim. Jim wants Jade to stay away from his family, accusing him of filling their heads with ideas. Jade, on the other hand, really doesn't give a shit as he feels he's the only one around here actually trying to find a way to get out of this place. And sorry, Jim, I'm Team Jade here. I really think this conversation between Henry and Jim is important, and I'll explain why in a moment. If Tabitha is linked to Miranda, does that mean Jim, being Tabitha's husband, is linked to Henry?
Jim, I look at you right now. All I see is me standing there 40 years ago.
These two are incredibly similar. Both their fathers were alcoholics, both have wives seeing visions, and both have had to deal with their families falling apart. Remember that Jim and Tabitha were going to get divorced before arriving in town. Henry pours a drink for Jim, wondering if Jim will renew his vows of pledging to be a better dad and husband than his father was to him. And I think he did not take this shot. So episode 308 opens up the possibility for this show to go in several game-changing directions. But now I turn it over to you. What do you think will happen next? I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.